creating a space for yourself that contains the energy of you and appreciating you, and not and no one else, and not taking on, the boundary when you go into your home is about you. I really find it fascinating that you took all this stuff in, and I can see it crowded you into a little corner, so it was like barely any of Michelle left, and had all this other stuff of other people all over the place. I feel claustrophobic.
I know. I feel tight just talking about it. My shoulders are clenched.
Right.
Talking about it.
Okay. This is good, right? Because now what you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. Now you know, and you can make a different decision. That's the beauty of awareness, is when you know what you're doing. I don't say to people, don't do that. I say if you're going to do that, at least know you're doing it. At least be honest with yourself. Right? And if you're going to hold on to all this stuff and take on everybody else's feelings, at least be honest about it. That way you won't suffer. You're like, you know what? I'm just a sponge and I'm unhappy and I own it, right? But most people don't choose to do that. They do it because they don't really realize what they're doing. You see?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we made some progress here about number 1, feeling inspired. So if you were to reset, let's reframe this now. List 3 results you want to achieve through coaching. Reread that first sentence for me and see if you still think it's accurate. Let's maybe come up with a different one, because I'm not so sure feeling inspired is it. Do you, after what we talked about?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. You want me to read it again?
Well, I want you to rewrite it. I want you to say instead of saying to feel inspired to set goals, I want you to say to know that I can create boundaries in my life that don't include other people's emotions and stuff, or old shoes or sweaters or whatever it is, that I create a space that's mine and energetically positive and reflects me. And within that space, I'm naturally inspired to create from my divine self. You see the difference?
Yeah. Okay, so to create a space, I'm writing it down.
Yeah.
To create a space that that reflects me, or that makes me. I like how you said it better.
I know. Well, to create a space that is free from the opinions, and to create a space that has boundaries, where other people's emotions and stuff are out. Okay?
Okay.
Write that. And where I'm free to create, where everything that surrounds me has a positive effect on my energy system. However you want to say that. I mean, I have, wonderful gifts from friends. I have some crystals that I like. I have my artwork. I have pictures of my kids. I look around my rooms and I look and I go, everything in here makes me feel good.
Right.
Okay, so you create a space where I feel good, I feel honored, I feel inspired. I'll say it slowly. So I feel inspired to create from the divine expression of me. Now, we'll probably have to work on a little more why this happened to you, why you allowed all these people, places, and things to overcome you and overwhelm you and get in your space. But I'm not worried about that. We'll work on that.
Okay.
Okay? But for now, we're going to establish your intention, that you create a space of harmony, of beauty. Okay? And when you think about that space of harmony and beauty, does it include so-and-so's old sweaters, books, or junk that they don't want?
No.
Right. Okay, you're getting a pretty kind of a quick little aha moment here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And further, this moves into your personal relationships, okay, and especially starting a new relationship. I think one of the scarier things, if you will, and I use that word loosely, it's not really on my vocabulary, but The challenge, perhaps, when you start a new relationship is establishing boundaries. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And I think the thing that happens with women is that they tend to give away their power too early in the relationship because they just want to be liked. They don't want to lose the guy, right?
Right.
And I think you kind of had that happening where you got on the drugs because he thought it might be a good idea. Isn't that another example of you taking on other people's stuff?
Yeah.
And where you got lost in someone else's...
yes. Well, with him, it was like, he was very manipulative, and I met him at church. I never really liked him that much. But then he was like, one day he introduced me to the drugs, and that's how he lured me.
But I also think the tendency... Yeah. I hear you, but just let me say this. I can still hear in my intuition that this is not much different than you taking on so-and-so's old bicycle that doesn't work. It's still, and you didn't even like them. You probably didn't like half that stuff people gave me. It was just your tendency to take on other people's stuff, and then all of a sudden you got lost.
Right, yes, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
With him, it was the drugs.
Yeah.
With, what were some of these items, by the way, that people gave to you that crowded out your apartment so you haven't been able to do anything but watch TV to ignore it?
A lot of clothes. Clothes.
Do you like the clothes?
My aunt was going to have a yard sale, and it had like boxes of just household items, like knick-knack stuff. And
oh boy!
She was like, "Oh, here." So she like insisted that I take it. She's like a real controlling person that I've tried to cut back from my life. So just like household things.
Old knickknacks. Okay.
Knickknacks.
I think we got the picture.
And then my father gives me like all his old. I have like 4 cameras. I've got 3 printers. I've got.
I can't breathe.
I don't even know. Huh?
I said I'm having trouble breathing.
I know. So I had like 3 clients give me trash bags full of clothes. My aunt gave me a carloads full of like knickknacks, and then my father gave me like printers and
Yeah, I get it. Wow.
Yeah.
As you're talking, can you see now if and we can laugh about it, but you understand this is a much bigger picture of you just willing. It's like you just hold out your arms, and it doesn't stop at somebody's knickknacks. You're taking on people's garbage, Michelle.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Right? I'd be watching TV too. Seriously.
Yeah, right.
That's a lot. I mean, we're all beings of energy. If you were a baby, you'd be screaming with colic right now. You know what I mean? Like, ah! Because your nervous system, everything is energy, and it's not, it's reminding me of, these old psychics or whatever, or, can, like, read palms and hold other people's old jewelry and get all this information like that, which I think we all have the ability to do that to a certain extent. But, I've heard that if you go to an antique store and you buy somebody else's jewelry, that you want to clear it and realize you could just start feeling cruddy all of a sudden because energy gets absorbed into people's stuff. So I can only imagine how lousy you must have been feeling to a certain extent. Plus, subconsciously, that you have no boundaries and people are just dumping their stuff on you. You've got to feel pretty bad on that on some level, like powerless. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The good news is once you know what you're doing, you can do something different. So we're going to have to work on, here, Michelle, here's a big bag of my old knickknacks. What's your new answer?
No, thank you.
Oh, no, Michelle, you really want them. They're really going to, push. I'll feel really bad if you don't take all my old knickknacks. What's your response now?
I don't have any room for them.
Oh, that's,
I
well,
don't
yeah.
need them. No, thank
I
you.
appreciate, I always appreciate, thank you. I got coined the term, like a sandwich. You say, like, thank you, I appreciate you thinking of me. That's really nice of you. And then the middle of the sandwich is, however, I'm not able to take them. And then the nice part again is, but you enjoy them. I'm sure someone else will enjoy them. I'm sure the Salvation Army. You see what I'm saying? So you very graciously say no while you're not insulting the person.
Right.
So we're going to have a lot of practice around that, right? Okay, that's number 1. Now, the emotional part, because I just know if you're taking on other people's knickknacks and old clothes, that I'm sure you're taking on their emotions such as anger, fear, resentment, and all of those other things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little more subtle to not take that on. That's when we build you up from the inside out and you get to create your own emotional boundaries. And you're like, you know what, I'm not taking your anger out. And especially when you start a new relationship, I'm glad we're working together, because depending on the relationship, there does seems to be a pattern, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, but it always kind of starts off really good, and then maybe the guy will pull away a little bit, and you get all nervous, pulls out all the insecurities, and you might call him one too many times, and then then you pull back, and then, so this whole dance thing, because both people are probably scared to death to really commit and be vulnerable, right?
Right. Yeah.
And in that process, you really have to learn to hold your boundaries, because the guy will only inevitably respect you. You have to be willing to walk away sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really have to hold your ground. And so if you've had this pattern of not, of trying to caretake, and that's part of it too. When you take on everybody's stuff the way you did, you're going to over caretake for someone else's emotional well-being. I mean, you took drugs, for goodness sakes. You didn't even want to. I don't think there's any real part of you that really made that choice consciously. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It was people pleasing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not here. God did not put you. You did not come to earth to people please, right?
Right.
But that's okay, because you learned from it, and so now working together, I want to work with you to make sure that you have the tools, because it's easy for me to say don't people please, but if you don't have the tools or the understanding that you're even doing it, and you have this whole message maybe growing up, well, Michelle, it's really selfish of you not to do this for other people, right?
Right.
And that does happen. There's a whole generation, a lot of us, it was like, the worst, it was like a 4-letter word, except it was longer, selfish. It's like, God, please don't call me selfish.
Right.
And so we get accused of a lot of things when we create boundaries, and as women, we get called the B word. And, but what I talked with Dana last time in relationships, so I don't know how it's going with your new relationship now, but, feel free to talk about that over the next, course of the weeks that we work together here, so that we can make sure that this boundary thing is in place for you, whether it's, someone trying to hand you their knickknacks or hand you their bad mood, okay? Because it's not yours to take on.
Right.
You understand? Okay.
Yeah.
So before, let's not talk too much about him. Let's continue with this a little bit, unless you want to. Is there anything that you want to talk about, this new relationship that's come up that you need some help with? Is the communication good? Is he playing hard to get and stop calling or any of that nonsense?
No, he's been great.
Good.
He's been texting me and a couple of times a day. He's been really good. And I'm just, yesterday I started to get nervous, and I don't know. It was like I put this bad energy into it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's too good to be true.
Right. I was just thinking that. Yeah. Okay.
It's too good to be true. It's unbelievable. And this can't be happening.
Okay.
Something's gotta go. And it's almost like he picked up on it, because he did call me today. He did call me, but he hasn't texted me. I don't know. And he's been, the last few days, he's texted me, I'm thinking about you, and wish I was with you, that kind of thing. And I didn't get any of that today.
Okay.
Although he did call.
All right.
So,
how was the phone conversation? I just watched like a hawk when those little things start fast and furious.
Oh,
and
my
then,
stomach just, yeah.
Yeah. How was the conversation on the phone?
It was a little short, actually. He was on. He had called me, and I didn't know he called. So then I called him back about 45 minutes later, and he was on his way. He was in the middle of working. He was on his way to deliver something, so he had to go because he was where he was at.
I get you.
And I haven't heard from him.